Hi, I'm Carl Moberg. I'm the CTO at Avassa. I'm here at Edge Field Day 1, baby. And I brought my solution architect, Fredrik Jansson. And at Avassa, we provide an application management and operations platform for on-site edges. That's important, it's on-site edges. And in this section, or in this demo, we're gonna follow Fredrik McEngine. He's a platform engineer, and we get to follow Fredrik as he does a couple of things to set up his infrastructure for an eventual introduction of an application team.
Exactly.
Very good. So let me just tell you one more thing, is that there's going to be 3 steps. I'm going to do that old, like, tell you guys what we're doing, do it, and then maybe remind you what we just did. We're going to onboard a new 3 hosts. We're going to get you somewhat acquainted to the web UI. Onboard a new site. Make sure that the new cluster can actually do what it tells us that it can. And there might be a problem. Who knows? Maybe there's a problem that comes up, and maybe someone will remedy that problem. We shall see. We shall see.
So this is the control tower. This is the UI for the control tower, I should say. And as you can see, I have 50 plus sites that I have already onboarded that we're going to use through the demo. And as Carl said, we're actually going to kick it off by adding another site to this one, a 3 cluster site that is actually running on a small machine over there. So I have 3 VMs running on that machine. So I'm going to switch to my terminal pretty soon, and we're going to install one of the machines, and then we're going to automate the rest. And I'm going to add it into the UI here. Again, this is typically something you automate, but we really want to take you through the steps of how you do this, typically the first time when you evaluate our product. So what I'll do is I'll go here. We have this really convenient command that installs our software and the dependencies that we have. So I'm going to copy this guy and brace now. Now I'm going to switch to my terminal. So here I'm actually SSH'd into the first host that will be our Arlanda airport site. I happen to pick Arlanda because it starts with an A, so it will end up top of my list there. So I'll paste that in, and then I'm gonna, just for convenience, add these so I don't have to type anything while it installs. So this will go to this particular control tower that I set up today. It will download everything and install our Docker and all the things that we need to run. End of it, it outputs this host ID. And this is crucial to us. This is something that uniquely identifies this particular machine. So I will need to configure the control tower and say, if a machine calls home with this particular ID, it belongs to a site. And that is a site we're going to create now. And then I'm going to cheat a bit more, so you don't have to do this 3 times. I have this script here that I can run that just prints the host IDs for the machines I'm going to add. So bear with me, I'm going to...
So I have a question now.
Perfect timing.
So the hosts are the physical machines, just to get the terminology the same way.
I'll make it complicated though, because it might be a VM running on scale.
Okay, that's why I'm asking.
But you see what I mean? Think of it maybe as an instance of an operating system, like a Linux, either on bare metal or on a VM.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. But that means what is required at the site to get a host ready to accept, like say you want the host to be the VM host. So what's required at the site to bring it from bare metal to that point?
So either, I mean, if you're a bare metal shop, you have some sort of installation procedure with your favorite Linux. After that procedure is done and you've hardened it and done everything that the IT teams, then you run it.
Okay,
perfect. Exactly. And again, if you use something like a scale, they literally have a way of just conjuring one that's already done, up, running, called home, everything.
Okay. From this demo, it is implied that you see the OS directly without any network trick, like, I don't know.
It is implied.
You have network translation at the remote site, especially if you have a very small site with a ADSL or,
For installation, that's true. Everything after that, it's not true, and we'll show you how that works.
Okay.
But for installing it initially, and actually it kind of says so, it actually now waits because it actually installs by pulling an image from the control tower and putting that into a local registry. So it's not a bare metal installer. It's actually a containerized application running on Docker in this case, also on Podman, because that culture war isn't ended yet.
So do you make all the checks initially to see if you have the right version of Linux and all the packages that you need and everything?
And it's surprisingly small because containers. See what I mean? Because we rely heavily on what OCI container runtimes gives us with a small set of external requirements. For example, we use WireGuard. So we require WireGuard in the kernel, which is kind of true for most modern distributions now. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have to use Control Tower as the registry, or can you use...
You don't have to, but it's awfully convenient.
Yeah.
It's very convenient because you don't have... Usually people are very sensitive to firewalls, as you guys, I'm sure, aware. And if it only requires one, maybe if the firewall is double-sided, if you only need access to the control tower, which you're going to need anyway, right, because of the control plane, then that's better. But yes, you could potentially pull from a repo or registry on the side.
Can Control Tower also, could it pull from another registry?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually,
We'll show you that.
Actually, in the SaaS, that's how we do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna take the first one of this and then I'm gonna head back into the UI. So click here, we're gonna give this a name. This is the name of the site, Arlanda, give it a Arlanda Airport. And then I'm gonna...
So before we get into this, so the install script really just installs the dependencies on the machine, and then obviously that script prints out the hosts and you still add them manually in here. Are there plans to kind of automate the securely with certificates or something like the install to pull down from the control tower to...
The thing is, when I automate this for the rest of these 50 sites, that's exactly what I do.
Okay.
So I install our software and I automate the onboarding onboarding of the site into here. And what you basically do is you post this YAML payload to our APIs. But now I'm going to type it in, so to say, for this.
Or it could be driven programmatically through the APIs.
Exactly, but maybe to your point, what happens during the call home is a lot of things. So for example, certificate exchange, both on a host site and actually tenant level.
Yep.
So all that is set up without external needs.
Right.
So that's all being handled by, because one of the things, as you guys can imagine, and I'm not the first one to say it, this needs to be as hands-off as it can possibly be. Attaching this to a variety of QR codes. People have very strong opinions about the host ID, because it usually ties into their inventory system.
Yep.
They may have their own namespaces for it. In this case, we actually pull it from DMI, so from the motherboard serial. But that freaks some people out. Yeah.
Very good. So while we were talking, I added a few things. So I pasted in the other host IDs down here for the other two machines. And I also added some labels. And these labels will come into play when we start deploying applications on this particular site. So now I'm gonna hit submit here. And what will happen is what it says, it will try to set up everything. It will form a local cluster, set up WireGuard between those machines. So while we wait for that, I thought I'd just walk you briefly through what you see here to the left.
A quick question. I think Carl mentioned certificates. Sorry, over here. Do you actually generate certificates on that actual host itself? And is that used for mutual verification when it first connects?
Yes. So when you do the installation, as I just did, you can use certificates for that as part of authenticating this particular host. But then we're gonna, as soon as we trust that host, so to say, we're gonna generate certificates that we use for our communication and also certificates for the local APIs on those hosts.
Okay. So knowing that host ID, the key, I can't move it arbitrarily to another host after it's initiated and pretend to be that host?
So what you would do is if you want to take a host, maybe it's breaking down, you want to replace it.
Yeah.
What you would do is you would add another host, install our software,
and then
add it to this site.
And then swap the roles.
And then you can decommission the old one.
And the scheduler will help you with that. So move the applications and all that.
I was curious as to why it's generated. Some systems generate a ID on the control system itself, and then as part of the installation, you impose that ID on the host itself.
Actually, that's another option for the installer script.
Ah, there it
If you
is.
want to do it that way.
Yeah.
And again, we're really trying to be defensive about how this happens.
Right, because
People have very strong
they
opinions
are.
about it.
That's one of
Yeah.
the most.
Exactly.
Okay.
So as you can see, they all call home. They're healthy. Life is good. I'm gonna pick one of the other hosts because we have a few things here that are of interest, we think, to the operators. The T tells the operator, oops, what happened now? Oh, here we go. The T tells the operator that there is another tenant that is attached to the site. That means that the owner of the infrastructure has given access to some other party in our system to this site. And the A tells me that there are applications running on this. So if I need to do something with this site, that gives me a quick overview of someone is running applications on this site. That someone is not me, that is another team. And we're going to use Amplifer's team later in the demo. So, and then you get basic host monitoring. So we continuously monitor what is the memory pressure, CPU, and disk, and so forth on this. So I think I'll stop
Yeah,
there.
maybe real brief. We also pick out a lot of runtime environment data here. So if you look at the bottom, you can see that we're cheating a little for you guys. It's running on Amazon EC2s. So we have pretty in-depth knowledge of the hardware, both by interrogating SMBIOS, DMI, but also UDEV. So as some of you may know, the Linux kernel lovers here know that UDEV is a tree-structured representation of all the hardware that is actually can be seen through the kernel, including things like, is there a camera attached? Is there a GPU? What kind of disk controllers that we have? And at the heart of this system, we surface that stuff, and we'll show you how that can then be used to schedule applications.
Are the metrics, can you go back in time, or is it? Yeah. Cool.
We have yes, the clock is my enemy now. So we have a distributed event management or event system that we actually have distributed queries for. So we will look at some application metrics, and we'll show you how we can go back in time. And of course, our user base is divided. Some of them want to use this kind of bare bones operational things. Most users' long-term plan is to get this into CloudWatch, Stackdriver, whatever data lake they have.
Yep.
So we try to be, yes. And personally, I think getting to know the system like this is awesome. But if you have industrial plans, you probably have something like this already to avoid the swivel chairing.
One quick question from the virtual world over here. I was curious, during the setup process, are you guys doing any sort of persistent network creation, a tunnel or VPN or anything like that? Or is all of your interaction via APIs over the public internet or something different?
So we actually do the networking inside of the cluster, inside of the site. We've deliberately stayed out of trying to do like SD-WAN or SASE style networking back to something central. More than happy to do a couple of partnerships that we're announcing and have announced, but that's not going to be in scope for us because in our world, that's an entirely different ballgame. You see what I mean?
Yeah, so anything is going to be over the public internet to control tower, though, more or less. You're just setting up the cluster.
That's exactly right. But it's going to be, TLS and all that, of course, but nothing particular in terms of tunneling or anything like on top of what we can do from the application there.